Hey everybody, I'm Robb Pearlman and I'm about to beam up with the SyFy Sisters.
Hey everybody, welcome to the SyFy Sisters podcast, where we give you our point of view. We are proud members of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and I am so happy to be here today. I'm your host, Tamia Harper, and I'm joined by your other hosts, my other sisters. I have with me today Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
And Sabrina Wood.
Whoop, whoop.
I was like, I'm waiting. And yeah, we have a great show for you today. Somebody who has become really near and dear to our hearts. The first time we met him, we felt like we had met a brother from another mother, and he's like family in our hearts to us. And he is an amazingly accomplished editor and writer and so many more things. His name, you guys, and pop culturalist, because you're going to know his name when I say it. His name, y'all, is Robb Pearlman. He's a pop culturalist. He's a #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 70 books for both grown-ups and kids. He was a publishing professional, and he acquired a bunch of books and edited a bunch of books that we all know, like this one, which I sold many times because I was a bookseller for 10 years. So I'm familiar with a lot of his work. The Official Princess Bride Cookbook, I remember this book. Somewhere Out There, a memoir by Don Bluth. Fandom Acts of Kindness. Leading Lady, a memoir by Charles Bush. Hi, honey, I'm homo. Parks and Recreation, the official cookbook. Drag, combing through the bigwigs of show business. Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting, my man. I really like pick your brain about that one. The Bob's Burgers Burger Book. Anomalisa, Zombies on Film, The Definitive Story of Undead Cinema. That's so cool. Stuck on Star Trek. Yay, we love that book. And my personal favorite, one of my personal favorites, The Princess Bride, A Celebration. It is like my all-time favorite movie. So he's edited monographs of the works and lives of award-winning animators Bill Plympton and Ralph Bakshi. The Joker, the first book solely devoted to the DC Comics supervillain, as well as really cool children's books, including Grandma Moses's The Night Before Christmas, John Patrick Burns's The Donald and Benoit, and for Yvette, a poem as big as New York City. So we just want to welcome Robb to the show. Robb, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hi, friends. Hi.
We're so
I see
excited.
you got the publicity thing my mom sent you, so thanks for reading that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, we're amazed. I really wanted to read all of that because you are so incredibly talented, and
Wow.
you've done so much in the publishing world, and I didn't realize like quite how much of your work or works that you are responsible for bringing to the world that I know. And especially like I alluded to, I was a bookseller for 10 years, and then I was a sales rep for a publishing company for a while. And I'm like, how come I never, ever met this human being before? Because I first got to meet you on the cruise, and yay, that was awesome. Because
Yeah.
you also work for Star Trek: The Cruise. You're on the staff there as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was my 5th cruise. It's 5th or 6th. It all blends together. I think it was my 5th. I missed the first one. But I was on everything since number 2 on. So yeah, 5 of them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning. What led you to the publishing world and writing? Were you always a creative writer or writer?
Yeah, I've always been a book guy. Books are really, really treasured and valued in my house. And some of my best memories are, it's summer vacation, walking to the library with my mom, It's super, super hot outside, in Brooklyn, but the minute you open the doors, like the super cold air conditioning hits, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my jam. I'm home here. And then just taking home piles and piles of books. And I really remember I was probably 5, maybe 6 years old. And for some reason, I just wanted to take home a Hardy Boys book. And the librarian said, okay, if you can read it, you can take it home. And I remember one of the first lines had the word motorcycle in it, and I couldn't read the word motorcycle. And they were like, all right, you'll be able to read that in a little bit. Why don't you look at these picture books? And I would just take home piles and piles of picture books. And that was really the first time when I realized just how important and transformational the act of reading was. And I could just go through those piles over and over again until it was time to go back and get more. And you could just get more books. It was amazing. And it never really dawned on me that people wrote the books and people printed the books and produced the books. And, as I was growing up, my aunt gave me an electric typewriter.
Wow.
I think we all remember what typewriters were. Remember typewriters?
That was a big deal, getting an electric typewriter.
Yeah, it was this gigantic vibrating brown monstrosity.
They did have a home to them, didn't they?
Oh man, it probably weighed as much as I do. And I remember trying to type on it, not knowing how to type, but the vibrations would shoot up my hands and into my arms. And I was like, oh, this is invigorating. I love this. And then I went to grad school for publishing. I got my master's in publishing. Because I knew that I wanted to be part of the book process. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to be part of it and play at least a small part in giving people the experiences that I enjoyed and treasured so much. So I got my master's in publishing.
Where did you go? I've not heard of a master's in publishing before.
Yeah, I went to Pace in the city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of the few schools that have masters in publishing programs, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
it's really, really great.
In New York, of course they do.
Right there, yeah, it's right by City Hall. My campus was uptown, so I was working full time and then going to school at night full time. And I was exhausted. I was getting home at 11 o'clock at night, but I knew I had to do it. I wanted to do it. And that was great because I got to have classes in all of the different aspects of publishing, in production and design and editorial and sub-rights, which was my first job. And it was great because I understood what I liked and what I couldn't do. Like production, no way could I do that because there's so much math involved. And I knew I couldn't be in the finance department because of math reasons. But I really enjoyed the sub-rights part and the editorial part. So I went into it that way, and I started in sub-rights. I did that at Disney and Simon & Schuster, and then I switched over to the editorial side, working for Rizzoli.
Wow.
And while I was doing that, 9 to 5, I was writing books on nights and weekends. So I was all books all the time.
I love it. You just listening to you talk book right now is just so soothing to my soul because it's been many years since I've been out of the book industry, but it never leaves you, and books are still my most comforting thing. I mean, right now, even though visual media has overtaken books in my life, basically because of circumstance and because of lack of time and because of, reading, I fall asleep now, when I'm reading and my eyes are different and everything, but it's still the love of my life, my first love, always my first love. So it just feels so good to hear you speak book. And I don't have a lot of friends still in that world. But it's just beautiful. I'm just having a Tamia thing.
It's a tough business, so you really have to love it.
Yeah.
And once you're in it and you love it, it's real. To your point, it's really hard to get it out of your blood.
Yeah, like I say, like if anything happened with my work now, I would go back to the book world in a heartbeat.
Uh-huh.
And now that I know that there's such a thing as a master's program in publishing,
Publishing. Yes.
Oh, do it. It's
watch
so
out,
great.
world.
It's so great. It's still around. There's tons of online classes you can take.
Oh,
It's a
hell yeah.
really wonderful program.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I'm so super jealous, but like but but at the same time, like I'm really grateful that you did that because you've produced all these amazing works. And I think that one of the things that your bio didn't touch on as much was all the children's work that you're doing. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and we love that about you. Like when on the cruise, one of the things that I learned that I came to respect about you was your dedication to putting works out there that will help shape young minds, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To bring about the type of change that we are hoping to see in this world, to hopefully get to the future, the Trek future that we want, right? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
even if it's not through the lens of Star Trek, it's through these other things, like like these other steps of how do you teach people to be fair to one another? How do you teach people to accept difference? Like, how do you not just accept difference, but see strength in differences? Can you talk about your agenda, maybe? Is there an agenda to put out these types of works, or your interest in putting out these children's works and what you'd like to do with them and accomplish?
I think the agenda is it's a really good question. I write adult books and I write kids books. And I think to your earlier point, as a book person, as someone who appreciates books and who's worked in the industry and will spend part of a vacation looking at a bookstore, at a local bookstore and talking to booksellers, I understand from lots of different sides of that equation that when you're asking someone to spend their time and their money on a book, you're asking them to make an investment, and they need to be rewarded for that investment and to feel satisfied by the end of it. So, my agenda is to try to put out kindness and to try to put out the kinds of books that as an adult I would want to read and appreciate, but also thinking of me as a kid and the kinds of books that I would have liked to have read when I was little. Because I'm sure there are lots of little kids out there like me who are just looking for that one book that they can see themselves in. Emotionally, illustratively, a turn of phrase, something where a kid could be like, yes, I get it. Or, yes, that's me. Or they understand what I'm talking about. And even better still, something that is going to spark a conversation between the kids and the adults in their lives that leads to growth and education and fun. Like, the kinds of stuff I write are not, hard-hitting nonfiction works about politics. I know my lane and I have to stay in my lane because I know I wouldn't be good in any other lane. So I enjoy giving people, a happy little break during the day, to sort of paraphrase Bob Ross a little bit, to take them out of their reality, to give them just a breather. And then, especially for kids, to feel that sense of security and importance, and to give them something that they would want to read over and over and over again, like the books that I wanted to read over and over and over again. My favorite books when I was growing up were Harold and the Purple Crayon, and the monster at the end of the book, and In the Night Kitchen. And,
I love In the Night Kitchen.
Those are my three favorites. And looking back on them, they're all about, single little kids working their imagination and interacting with their environment around them. And, I think I try to do that a little bit with the Bob Ross picture books. Bob is always talking directly to the reader and inviting them into the painting experience. And that makes me happy to at least try to be a part of that kid's life, that family's life, in a healthy, productive, and fun way.
I love
If that
that.
makes any sense.
It does.
It really does. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
does.
it's not my job to tell people what they should think and what they shouldn't think. But I think it's everybody's job to make sure that people know that they can think and that they can feel.
There you go.
I know, right? Thinking, dangerous.
Dangerous.
Super dangerous.
And you're not political.
No, I just happen to like show up on a banned book list every other week.
There you go. There you go. I like you even more.
It's a weird place to be, but yeah. I take what I do as much fun as it is for me. I take it super, super seriously because I know that people are going to be reading it and thinking about it, and unfortunately, sometimes commenting on it and writing reviews on it.
It's
we can't control that.
It's so important. Books. I've always been a reader, even especially when I was a kid. The library was my spot. I grew up in the projects, and I was like, oof, let me get away from some of this stuff. And I would go hide in the even if it wasn't, no matter what time of year it was my safe space to really be the nerd that I really was. Because out with my friends, I had to be kind of cool, so nobody would laugh at, nobody wants to get laughed at. So I loved going to the library. And when my kids were growing up, I used to always make sure I bought books that were books that the cover looked like them. Somebody on the cover didn't look, what people were saying, what should be the norm.
Right.
A lot of monsters, funny looking things, a lot of colors. And I noticed that it just made them better readers because they were okay with looking at a book. The book made them feel better. The book made them feel like, oh, I don't have to worry about the way I look. There was none of that. Like TV. TV was always judging. Where a book, especially if you pick the right book, it's just a book. I can be a kid, read a book, and have a good time. And like you said, it's a safe space. And it's like, and a breather, because they have to deal with all of that stuff, So I always bought all of these books. I was telling my daughter about your book, Pink is for Boys.
Pink is for Boys.
And she was like, wait, what? Pink is for Boys? Wait, there's a book like that? Why didn't you ever read that to me? I said, well, you were a lot older when this came out. And she goes, oh, of course Pink is for Boys, because she was like, I always hated pink. I always liked blue. I never understood that. Why did they have to attach a color to me? And I was like, my gender, so
it's so dumb.
It was, no matter, your books are for everyone. They're not just for kids, especially the kid books. I think they're for everyone because, like you said, the parent reads it with the kid, and there's so much there for the parent also. Yeah. So I think I love your children's books. I have a lot of them.
Thanks.
So I love your children's books. Mainly the Star Trek ones. They're really cool.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I wrote The Sublime Miss Stacks. It's an ode to librarians and to libraries. And it was really important for me and the illustrator, Danny Jones, who's a brilliant, brilliant illustrator, to show kids who look like every kid. So there's a wheelchair user in the book, and there's, gender nonconforming kids. Like, you don't know if it's traditionally a boy or a girl. And, there's all skin tones and all eye shapes. Like, we wanted everyone to be able to point at one kid and be like, oh, that looks like me. That looks like my sister. That looks like my dad. That looks like somebody. And the same for Pink is for Boys. I think I mentioned this on the cruise, but I get it. I mean, it's really lovely. I get a lot of emails and social media posts about people saying, thank you for writing this book. My boy always loved Pink, and he always got made fun of, but now he knows it's okay and it's his favorite book. But I was also, especially when the book first came out, getting some social media posts and some emails from these families who were like, this is the first time my little brown girl saw herself on a cover with a little white boy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not making a big deal out. It's just
Right.
two kids painting on a cover. Like, why wouldn't they be together? And I was really surprised at those emails,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't expecting it
Mm.
at all. But that's where we are. Oh, there's the book.
Yvette is holding up her copy of Pink is for Boys.
There we go.
This is a beautiful cover. I remember selling a lot of that book.
Thanks. It's still selling. It's
Yeah.
still selling. I'm
I bet.
really, really proud of it.
I've
proud
been
of it.
Well, you should be.
collecting a lot of books for one day if I have grandchildren. I was telling Tamia this, that I just, because, you'll forget once the kid comes, if the kid comes, you'll forget what kind of book. So every time I see a book or a children's book that I see that has, it has a lot of different people, colors, people, different shades, I try to buy them so that I can make that little bundle, the gift, so
Yeah.
whatever, because we don't have any little kids in our family really. So
Yet.
I said,
Yes.
but that's why I want to get this little stack together, because when the kid comes, you got to forget. So every time I see one, I'm like, oh, let me get that. I'll put that in the little
Boy,
stack.
me.
That was one of the first
It doesn't
books.
have to be her.
Yeah, that was one of the first books that came out in hardcover, and the publisher reissued it as a board book.
Oh, great.
Oh.
Yeah.
And,
okay. That's fantastic.
As
That
a
is
publishing
perfect.
nerd, I'm like, 2 formats? What?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Like, that's
I
a
love
big deal.
Yep.
Yeah, I was really, really happy about that.
Yeah.
I want
Now,
to.
can I ask
Go
you,
ahead.
I just want to
Go
ask you a
ahead.
question about your illustrators. You don't use the same illustrator ever, right? You always use different ones? Is that?
Sometimes I use the same one. The Office and Parks and Recreation have the same illustrator, and in fact, that illustrator is also illustrating my Smurfs books
Oh, wow.
too. Melanie
Smurf
Demmer, she's
books?
fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
Wait.
Second one's coming out this year.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
More books.
Papa
I
Smurf,
was-
Papa Smurf.
Talk about a dream come true. I was a Smurf kid.
Were you?
Like,
Smurfs were cool.
I had Smurf birthdays. I bought so many Smurfs. The guy in the store gave us the spinner rack, which I still have.
I was a
And-
Smurf adult, but I was a Smurf.
Oh my God. And I'm going to hold this up. The listeners can't see it, but this little Poet Smurf
Poet
has
Smurf.
been sitting on my desk
Wow.
I
for 30
love it.
years.
Uh-huh.
And the next Smurf book is Where's Your Poem, Poet Smurf?
Mm.
Full circle
I
moment.
love that.
That's so cool. I didn't even know there was a Poet Smurf. Like,
Right?
who
Oh,
knew?
yeah.
I didn't know that either until he just showed it to us.
I was not a Smurf head, like the Smurfs, like I was like the one woman, like there's one chick like, in the whole what the hell is going on with the Smurfs? Like, I don't even get this. Like, really?
Smurfs were cool.
They were just a lot of fun.
The Smurfs confused me. I know, but then I would totally get stuck watching it. Like, I would be like, oh, I don't like the Smurfs, but then I would watch the whole show.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Because it
Yes.
came on before Gargoyles.
It did.
It did, yeah.
Sure
Yeah.
did.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. I would sit,
That
watch
was
the
the lineup.
Smurfs, eat
That was
my
the lineup.
Smurfberry Crunch cereal.
Smurfberry Crunch.
Oh,
My
yeah.
tongue would be blue.
Totally blue.
And I wasn't a
Terrible
kid.
cereal.
That was a terrible cereal.
That's what I'm saying. I was not a kid.
I was not a
Terrible.
kid.
Oh,
I
didn't
wasn't
have
an
the
older
cereal.
person, but I
drew
wasn't
the
a
line
kid
at
kid.
the cereal.
I'd be like, is it blue?
Not yet. Have more. Have more.
Have more, right? More. Oh my goodness.
I'm tripping over Poet Smurf now. Like now,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
Now
have
you
to-
got to get one, right?
Like, was Poet
Oh.
Smurf ever even featured on the show? Did Poet Smurf have any lines?
Oh, sure. Yeah. He rhymes. He speaks in couplets.
Oh my God. Okay.
So imagine
I
like
gotta go
writing
back.
couplets in a Smurf picture book now
Right?
He would
when
be
I'm a little, I
rapper
mean, come
Smurf
on.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now he'd be rapper Smurf.
You'd think it would be easy to rhyme something with Smurfberry, but it's actually a little tricky.
Is it really?
It's a little tricky.
Like,
Yeah.
there's only a few words that rhyme with berry.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got to be in context with the story and move it along.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
That is
I've got 300 words to tell this entire tale, and Smurfberry is two of them already.
I'm thinking about all these words that rhyme with berry. I'm getting a lot of them. Dairy, berry.
You can't rhyme berry with
Barry.
berry. That's cheating.
No, you can't.
I said Barry.
Oh, Barry.
Barry. My friend Barry.
Okay, so you have to get the New York accent on it, so you know the different
Well,
words.
he's got a New York accent.
And now Poet Smurf does too.
Right, of course he does.
Poet Smurf's from Flatbush.
He's from, I'm from the Bronx, so hey, there you go. There's two accents right there. Honey, please, sorry.
So you've written, can you list some of the Star Trek books that you've done? Because you've done a lot of them.
Oh my gosh, I've done 12.
Jeez Louise, man.
Can you believe it? I've done 12. So I did Search for Spock, which is sort of like a Where's Waldo, but with Star Trek. And you have to search for Spock. There it is.
And Yvette has it.
Yvette has it. She's my Vanna White for the evening.
I know, right? We so wish this was on video, guys. Sorry.
I do. The latest one that just came out is Trek the Halls, which is a holiday book.
I love that book.
Oh, wow.
My very first one is Fun with Kirk and Spock, which is Yvette, thank you.
It looks like a Dick and Jane cover. Like it looks like one of the old Dick and Jane covers.
Yeah, but Khan is there, so it can't be Dick and Jane. It's gonna be something.
Dick and Jane were never heard from again. I did The Girl Who Made the Stars.
Oh, yes.
Which is based on a short Trek book. Yes. So that was interesting because it was based on the short Trek. So it was the first time I really tried to adapt something that had already existed. And then sort of, take it in a new direction a little bit with the bumpers and everything. Star Trek Prodigy Supernova. That's my first middle grade novel.
Yes.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So that was really exciting to do. And that one, sort of like Girl Who Made the Stars, it was an interesting challenge because it took place in between the last two episodes of the show. Or I guess between episodes 10 and 11, I guess. And it's sort of based on a video game.
Right. That's what I thought it was.
So like the main points about the planet had to be there, but I had to fill in all of the sort of story bits too. So it was adapting some things. Sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
I think we've got a forum, so if the four of us agree, then yes,
right, exactly.
It's total that. Body by Starfleet, which is an exercise book.
Love that.
I love that book.
With actually like real exercises. I worked with a private trainer to figure them all out.
I love a horror with the Tribble doing the sides.
Oh, Tribble twists. Yeah.
And Worf doing with the Tribble is all the way out here.
Yes.
I love that one.
My favorites are the Riker maneuver, where you start to lift your arm. And at the beginning of the exercise, he's without a beard, but by the end of the exercise, he has his beard. Star Trek, my first book of colors.
I love that one book, too.
Nice.
Which was great.
Board book, yeah.
Star Trek's Red Shirt's Little Book of Doom.
Yes.
Which is all about, poor Red Shirt, like what his day is like. And it's not good. It's not good. Not good. Poor Red Shirt.
Going downhill from there.
Yeah. The Book of Grudge.
That's the one I have.
Yes, a
good old Grudge. So that was fun.
I love that one.
The Wit and Wisdom of Star Trek.
I love that one.
The Star Trek Book of Friendship, which I co-wrote with Jordan Hoffman.
Yeah. I
Nice.
that one.
And Star Trek Starfleet Is, which is all about the values that are in Starfleet, but also in fandom.
Oh, I need to get that one.
It has such a beautiful foreword by Ken Mitchell.
Oh,
wow.
Nice. It was really important, for all of my books for them to actually have a purpose to exist, really. And the idea for Starfleet came at a New York Comic-Con. I was at a panel, I think for the first season of Picard. And it was like a dual panel. It was like season 1 of Picard and season 2 of Discovery, season 3. So it was like a 2-hour thing. And it was in this, gigantic auditorium and filled with all kinds of people, kind of like any con is.
Right.
And, the actors were on stage and the creators were on stage. And afterward, I'm like, wow, like Starfleet is all that. And then I looked around, I was like, but this is Starfleet too.
Mm-hmm.
It's people from all walks of life,
yes.
all coming together for a common purpose. So when I was doing Starfleet I really wanted someone who sort of embodied that idea of Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person that came to mind was Ken Mitchell.
Yeah.
And he wrote the most beautiful introduction to it about a meeting that he had with Shatner, really just about Star Trek and the community and fandom. And a portion of the proceeds for that book go to ASL research.
Nice.
So it's an important book to me. It's in my heart.
And this was Starfleet is?
Starfleet is, yeah.
Okay.
That's beautiful. That's
so
beautiful.
I think that's all 12.
That's
Wow.
a lot. I knew it was a lot. And I knew I only knew like a small portion of them, It's like, oh my God, man, when do you sleep?
Man, I don't know.
And I wonder because you have studied a lot of these pop culture, but people sometimes downplay, the importance of pop culture studies and reflections, but it's not like these are the moments that we literally use to get through life on a daily basis. And it tells us all about our trends as a society and as human beings. But I'm wondering, is there a particular book that you've worked on that just you ended up learning a lot about yourself or ended up affecting you in a different way, but it was in an unexpected way?
Yes. Yeah. And it came as a complete shock. So a couple of years ago, I wrote a book called Live Like a Vulcan, Love Like a Wookie, Laugh Like a Hobbit.
No way!
Ben has that one too.
I'm reading this now. It's so good. I'm at the bar.
Oh, good. Which, when I started ideating it, I thought, it's just, life lessons from pop culture. So, I thought of things like you're going to need a bigger boat, like always be prepared, from Jaws, or fly casual, when you're approaching a situation that you don't quite know what to do with, kind of, fake it till you make it, from Star Wars. And the more I got into it and the more I started thinking about how to deliver this information, the more I was really looking inside myself and trying to identify those moments in pop culture, in movies and in books and in video games and TV shows and commercials that touched me in one way or the other. Either made me think or made me laugh or gave me something to pass on. And it was a really interesting experience because I didn't think I would be as moved by it. And I don't want to say the book is serious, but it came out a little bit more serious than I thought it was going to be when I first started doing it. And that's part of the writing process. And rather than fighting it and telling the book what it should be, I was listening to the characters in the book and the story that they were telling me it should be. And I shifted gears a little bit. Luckily, it happened at the beginning, so I didn't have to rewrite too much. But it really started making it a deeper experience for me. And the feedback that I've been getting has been really, really gratifying because, it's not a particularly long book. So you can read it in one or two sessions, but I really wanted to make it something that you could, pick up and put down and pick up and put down and hopefully reread a little bit. And one of the highest compliments I have ever gotten is from our friend, Dr. Erin McDonald,
Yay.
who told me that it made her cry.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And when she told me that, then of course I started crying and we both started crying. It was a mess and it was just crazy. And there's a section on grief and loss in it, which I was writing when I was going through that. And thinking about, my loss, but also the loss that these characters that are not real experienced and how that was affecting audiences. And yeah, the whole thing was really, really surprising for me, and I'm really proud of that book.
Yeah.
Do you think, as you were talking about it, I was thinking, like, what is that? Is it a book that you could have written like 20 years ago? Like, would it have been the same book? And I was thinking about, because, we're at a certain point in our lives where, these types of things start to take on a little bit more poignancy. And I wonder if you think that it would have, how the book might have been different if you had written it younger.
I think it would have been impossible for me to write the book. I think had I tried doing it, it would have been it would have been a really small, gifty joke book, really, and not take itself seriously at all, and not be as thoughtful, I think, in the characterizations of these four people who meet at a con. I don't think I had enough experience in those situations, in those social situations, to be authentic and write it as it is. And I think one of the things I always try to give to any book or any project I'm writing or editing or bringing on authors for is a sense of authenticity, because I think a reader can spot inauthentic writing the first page, the very first page. And that's okay. Not everybody is the right person to write every book. I know I'm not the person to write a World War II biography about kind of someone. I'm a middle-aged guy. I should know who World War II people are at this point. My grandfather is very upset with me, I'm sure.
Don't worry. Whatever.
But I think, I think 20 years ago, my perspective on pop culture was probably a bit more shallow than it is now. And I think, honestly, pop culture's come a long way in 20, 30
That's what
years.
I was going to say that too. Yeah. I mean, not only was it not respected, but there's a lot more work out there, because I think, for me, like the way I see it is our generations, like you and I are all pretty much the same generation, me, you and Yvette, and Sabrina's like a little bit before us, but pop culture wasn't a thing until we grew up, until our generation started growing up and saying like, hey, this stuff is important to us.
You took it with you.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I think the word the phrase pop culture came from people who were older than us that gave us this phrase. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, that's just my sense, and we're saying, we have been continuing to say, no, these things are important to us. These are, He-Man was on in the afternoon when I was a latchkey kid, and my opinions and thoughts were shaped partially by He-Man and She-Ra, so it's not unimportant, and starting to really take that seriously. Whereas, my parents' generation, they were raised on Bugs Bunny and stuff, but they weren't latchkey kids either, and it didn't have the same type of impact, I think.
Well, I said something. I said something the other day to Bill. He was saying, what game was happening when you were 18? Like, name it, just kind of like a throwback post. And I typed in, when I was 18, we weren't playing games anymore. And I said, that was like the whole difference between my generation and what you're talking about now. It's like, it was just over for us, and you had to put it down and you had to go to work. And that's not what's happening now. Everybody's just kind of, this is cool, this is coming back, and it's getting rebooted and redone and then revisited. So I think it's really interesting to watch everybody kind of cherish all these things now that, we thought was so Smurfish like before, but now we think it's cool.
When I wrote What Would Skeletor Do, which is sort of Skeletor's Guide to Life, it's a fun book, and it's screen grabs of the cartoon, and it's fun and funny. But I wrote it as a fan. I wasn't making fun of that. And like the fun Star Trek books I'm writing, or the Rick and Morty book that I wrote, or the Bob's Burgers stuff, like I approach all of these things as a fan, and I'm not making fun of any of it. I'm celebrating it. I'm celebrating the experience that we all shared with it, and it's my opportunity to like welcome more people into the tent.
Yes.
It's like, this is a really cool thing, and you may not get it, but
come see.
Yeah.
Do people misunderstand it sometimes? Do they think you're not a fan?
I think at first blush, they'll see Fun with Kirk and Spock, and you're like, oh, you're making fun of fans, and it's like, no, like, not at all. Like, take a look at it.
Open the book.
Cover copy.
Open the book.
Yeah, those people that don't open anything.
Open the book and read it. It's so
don't
good.
open anything but their mouths.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Because I look at these are supposed to be children's books, but you really need to know your Star Trek to appreciate some of these books, because you go deep, especially in Search for Spock.
Oh yeah.
So it's like Waldo, right? You have to look for Spock, but as you're looking for Spock, everybody else from the series is on there. Like everybody, like T'Pring, all the Vulcans. T'Pring is there. Even Sean, was it Sean? Is that T'Pring's new man?
Oh,
Stan.
Yeah.
T'Pol is in there, and I was like, oh, this is great. So somebody. I'm not, it's not a kid's book. So it's a kid's book, and I'm like, oh, that's this, and oh my God, they're in the Monster Maroons, and so it feels like someone who really loves this. I see it as a fan. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. Because I'm going through it. And I think was it Kirk and Spock? You go through the whole TOS. Don't you go through the whole thing? We get the whole series in there. So, so it's real. There's no laughing. It's just wonderment, and go, oh, this is so thoughtful.
I want them to laugh. I want them to laugh with me.
Yes,
at everything.
Yeah.
It's funny. Search for Spock doesn't have a lot of words in it. But the amount of art notes I had to write for that book,
I can imagine
the most amount, because I had to, in each scene, I was like, the Romulan commander needs to be talking to this person, and this person needs to be off in the corner, but hiding under a table.
Yes, because the pictures alone are the words. And there's scenes going on too, and you're supposed to be looking for Spock, but there's so much other stuff going on. I just love that.
Sarek and Amanda need to be here, but don't put Spock too close to Sarek, because they're
right. No, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
He can be next to Amanda, but not next to Sarek.
Not to Spock.
None of that.
Nope.
So good.
Well, one of the things that on the cruise, when I first met you, it was on the cruise, and I got to be on the panel with your panel about diversity in Star Trek. What we learned through it. What was the name of our panel again? It was the
Art and Science of Diversity.
Of IDIC. Yeah. It was a great panel. It was a lot of fun.
Really good. Yeah.
Right. I was first of all, thank you for letting me be on there with you, because that was something I didn't expect, and it was really cool. And
surprise.
I know, right? Hey, why don't you're on vacation. Come do a panel. Okay,
stage.
Sure.
Come on.
Yeah. All right. Why not? But is that okay, how do I frame this question? I guess I'll just keep it really open-ended. Can you talk about the importance of that philosophy in your life? Like how the IDIC has played out in your life?
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah.
Answer it however you want.
I think for lots of reasons, I've always felt othered in situations, whether it was in school or at work or just life, in general. I was one of the few only children in school. Everyone else had brothers and sisters. So I was like the one kid, or a really small group of kids who didn't have any brothers or sisters. So I like fundamentally don't understand that sibling relationship. I'm like, all right, you're not speaking today, but you're talking tomorrow. Okay, whatever. So there's that. And then, I was always the littlest kid. And I was the kid with the biggest Jufro. And then the only kid with the acne. And then I was, I was too short or I was too Jewish or not Jewish enough. Or, I was too gay or not gay enough. Or, I was, smart in these areas, but not smart here. So there was always a sense of otherness and not feeling whatever normal is in any one situation, really. And, that's the kind of thing that seeps into your bones a lot. Yeah. You never get rid of it. I don't think.
No.
For one reason or another, you can live with it and you can grow with it and you can put it in its place and understand what it was and what it is and, work your way around it, but it's always sort of there. So when watching Star Trek and knowing that it is part of its fundamental DNA and looking on screen and seeing people who look like me and the people I know and the people I love and the people I care about in all of the series. And some people act really weird and some people are, rougher or gentler or just this whole variety of really human experience. There's something very comforting about that. And there's something that makes people, even if they don't sort of aren't consciously aware of it, feeling less othered because there's some amount of connection. And I think a lot of pop culture does that. I think Star Trek is probably leading the charge on it and has been for 50 something, 60 years. I'm bad with math. But, I think that's another thing that pop culture gives to people. It gives them the opportunity to see a hero who looks like them or even a metaphorical situation that they're experiencing or, few people have to travel through Middle Earth, but there are lots of people who have to go, and figure something out or go to great lengths to help themselves or other people. And they find comfort in that. So feeling like an othered person all the time at one point or another. And it does get better. It definitely gets better. If you're lucky and you're surrounded by people who love and support you, it gets better. But it can be really, really tough. And I think pop culture can be a really comforting, safe space for people who don't quite know where they belong.
Yeah.
Because even for an hours long episode or a 2 hour long movie or reading a book for 3 hours, you can feel okay about it. You can feel okay about who you are and what you're going through, and what you've been through, really. And then you can hopefully take all that and make it easier for somebody else.
That's beautiful. And that's so true. I love how you ended that. Like you can hopefully make it better for somebody else. I mean, I feel like that's, part of the whole reason why we exist, the SyFy Sisters, because, when Sabrina and Fran first met each other online defending Michael Burnham before Star Trek Discovery had even come on the air, and they're in these chat rooms with people and all these groups on Facebook and stuff. And, frankly, a lot of Black folks, especially Black women, were feeling particularly marginalized at that point because of the vociferousness of people's objections to Michael Burnham. Am I correct, Sabrina?
You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think our when we had the experience, the formative experience that we had going to a panel at a convention, and the majority, all the Black women in that room being ignored when it was time for audience participation. It was so infuriating. And these are supposed to be by our allies, our supposed allies, and they didn't call on a single one of us to talk about Michael Burnham, the Black woman heading up the first new Star Trek show in a million years, right? Like really, like, can we get to that, and can we talk to that? That made us feel like that we have to fight to have our voices heard, and we might as well do it. But really why we wanted to create a safe space, for other folks to feel and be, which is why we created the mothership on Facebook, so that we wouldn't have to deal with that type of toxicity, and so we could speak how we wanted to speak, and without censure, and be a support for each other. And that's why it's become such a thriving community, because people know that you can come to the mothership and you can be who you are without being judged for that, that you will find some commonality of spirit,
Yeah, sometimes fandom is really interesting to me, because I've been working in various media for a really long time, and I understand that you are never ever going to make everybody happy.
Right.
You just can't do it, because if you appeal to everybody, you wind up appealing to nobody. And I get that intellectually. I get that. What I don't understand is that if you are one of the people who aren't happy about something, why you have to go out of your way to make everybody else unhappy about it. Let them be happy about it and support it. Not everything is for everybody. And all right, this isn't for me. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it.
Right.
I don't understand the need to constantly hate and unload and tell people that they're wrong for liking something that they like. I don't understand it. I wish I had the time and the energy to devote to that.
How can you keep maintaining this? You said that so many times.
Right.
It's exhausting. That constant level of grievance. It's like, oh God.
The constant level of grievance.
Yeah.
It's absolutely correct. Like, wow, you got a lot of time. I wish I had all this time.
You've got all this time, and this is how you are choosing to spend it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we know.
People.
Too much.
It's like, like we were saying the other night, there are times when we don't agree with things that we've seen in Star Trek, but we still enjoy the show. It's not like, look, I'm going to throw that baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
There's one thing I don't like. The whole series is no good. So people just really, they just.
Oh, and then they start saying, "Oh, you ruined my childhood."
Oh yeah.
It's like, dude, if this is the one that ruined your childhood,
one thing really.
Wow.
That sounds like a first world problem to me, but
Exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry, growing up in that mansion in Connecticut didn't fulfill all of your needs.
Oh my gosh. Ruined my childhood.
So, Rob,
yes.
Outside of us looking forward to being on the cruise with you again next year, what do you got coming up in the works?
Oh,
anything you want to talk about?
God, there is so much I want to talk about, but I can't.
Anything you can talk about?
Yes, there are a couple of things I can talk about.
Okay.
I've got a new Bob Ross picture book coming.
Woo-hoo!
Oh, is Peabody there?
Peabody is there. Good. Bob and Peapod play a game in this one.
Peapod.
Yep. They go into all of his paintings looking for art supplies.
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah. So that's coming out in September or October. I can't remember which one. My publisher's going to kill me. I have Loki's Book of Magic and Mischief, which is a magic book told through Loki.
Nice.
So I had to learn all of these magic tricks and then write about them.
Oh, that should be fun.
JD.
It was a lot of fun.
SyFy Sister for Life, JD. I know what I'm getting you for Christmas. If it's out.
Those are the two big books that I can talk about.
Okay.
Awesome.
But there's something next year that's sort of Star Trek adjacent.
Okay.
That I think everyone's going to like. And then there's two other things that I've been dying to tell people about, but it's too early.
It's too early.
All right.
And sort of like that, like, you know, like you've got to buy the books now because you're going to forget. If we talk about them too early, people are going to forget about them.
Yes, I get that.
Don't worry.
So you'll have to come back. You'll have to come back and tell us all about it.
If you'll have me.
Oh, always.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, one of the things. Okay. Go ahead.
So the cruise before this one, the fifth cruise, I was in your session where you were talking about, you were teaching like writing, like how to write a story, and you were giving us all these pointers and everything. And you were wonderful. I've been in a few classes now.
That wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you?
No. It was the other doctor. We always get confused.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Yeah.
This out.
It was Stephen Grenade. He's the other bald guy with the beard.
It was Stephen Grenade.
Yeah, I introduced him just to play around with people.
You're funny. That's why you messed up Sabrina's head.
Every year I get confused with other people. So it's
that's
usually
that guy
Dr. Muhammad and I
Yes.
usually get confused. I was
my God,
accosted, but this one woman at a bar like 2 cruises ago, she was like, your lecture was just fascinating. And we never thought about science that way. I'm like, that wasn't me. And she was like, no, it was you. And I'm like, ma'am, it wasn't me. I can't science. And she was like, oh no, it was you. And you said blah, blah, blah.
What?
Yeah.
At least
and
I believed you when you told me it wasn't you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it wasn't. But you did a fun one that I was at. I got there a little late, and it was the Mad Libs.
Oh, the Mad Libs, yeah.
That was so funny. I was like, how? That was like herding cats. And
It was.
You knew people were going to say crazy stuff too.
Yeah, it's always one of my favorite parts of the entire cruise because everyone really gets into it.
Yeah, they do.
And
packed.
especially if they've got a couple of drinks, it was packed. Yeah.
Yeah. You can move it out of that room.
Right. It's such that little bar that they have it in.
Yeah. Although I like the bar having there because if people are drinking, they start getting a little dirty
with
their answers.
When I got there, it was already getting a little.
Yeah, they were in their drinks by the time I got there. I was like, oh, okay.
It was great, but don't feel bad about confusing me with Stephen. Everybody does it.
Okay,
It happens all the time.
you can edit that out though.
Nope, it's staying in. I know.
No way, that's staying.
I know we got we got all serious on the show, but the reason that one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on and is because you are such a bundle of light and energy, you just really brighten up a room, and the work that you do is important to me because even on all the levels that you do it, first of all, your kids' books can be read by adults and enjoyed by the adults, and a lot of the adults' books work on a kid's level too. They work on multiple levels, but I think at the core of your work is joy. And I think that is so important and so needed right now, is the joy of the expression, the joy of celebrating the things that we love and discovering other things like you said, you might not know this about this particular series or franchise or whatever, it's just joy, and it's unmitigated and it's pure. And we don't, especially these days, we don't get to experience a lot of that. We don't have enough people sharing it, and it's important to me to just celebrate it whenever I come across it.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Thanks.
Well, you
that
give
means
it
a lot.
Yeah, you really give it, and it feels. That's why I said I fell in love with you on the cruise, and it's so easy to do because your heart, it just comes right out of your heart.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, there were a couple of times I'd see you ladies like just sitting there. I'm like, I want to go talk to them now. And you just welcomed me in. It was really sweet.
Oh, that's what I tell you. Like, it really felt like we'd all been hanging out forever.
It really did.
Together.
It really did. Yeah,
it really
totally.
did. I was like, oh, okay. He's part of the tribe.
Get rid of this guy. When do we get off the boat?
He's stuck with us now.
Next cruise, you're gonna be like, Jesus, I cannot get rid of these SyFy Sisters tricks. Oh my God. You're like, Aaron McDonald, how do I get rid of these SyFy Sister chicks?
Man overboard.
I'm gonna tell him I'm Steve and they'll let me alone.
It was good. Rob, on that note, I know, right? I'm going to thank you for coming on the show, and we're looking forward to the stuff that you told us about that's coming up. We're really looking forward to the stuff that you can't tell us about yet. I've got a whole new long reading list now, but I mean, a lot of your books, like for a lot of us fans, they're collectibles anyway. Like, you know, we want to get, and your takes on these things are so unique that you just got to have them anyway. So, you know, I mean, not to just blow more smoke, but it's true. No,
please,
I mean, I love them.
Blow
smoke my way.
Here's a question: Have you done any work in the for the Star Wars franchise?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, good. Yet. We need to. You hear that, Disney? Rob needs to be working on. Mm-hmm.
Call me too.
Disney, if you're listening.
And we hope you are.
We're going to get you listening, Disney. All right. So we'll be looking for that too. But we love you so much. Thank you for being on the show. Yvette, can you tell people where to reach us if they have thoughts about any of their experiences with Robb's books that they want to share?
You can find us at SyFySistas.com. That's SyFySistas.com. Join us on the Mothership. That's MUTHASHIP. And the SyFy Sistas Book Club, both on Facebook. On Instagram and TikTok, SyFy.Sistas. And we are also on that Twitter at SyFy Sistas. Become a patron of SyFy Sistas today at patreon.com/SyFy Sistas. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
And of course, we want to say hello, Dose. We want to give a biggest shout out to the biggest and baddest engineer in any universes, Dose the Anonymous One. He's responsible for the music you hear on our show and the production services. And if you have need of an audio engineer, please look him up on Instagram at dose_the_anonymous_one. And that's it for us, y'all. We love you, Rob, and we love all of you guys. Thanks for listening. Peace, love, and hair grease.
It's time for the shorty shout-outs. Zakia Graham, Wayne Ritz, Sue Kay, Stephanie Baker, Scott Jensen, Peter Hessler, Olga Kravchuk, Olden Klein, Muhammad Noor, Mark Richmond, J.R. Poole, David A. Gregory, Bill Erickson, Ann Bradley, The Chief, Ernesto Constagna, Travis Taylor, Timothy Baum, Susan V. Grunner, Stephanie Dole, Starbase Centaur 4210 Productions, Sailor Marge, Rita Poussaint Neversoul, Marcus Bigham, Liza Albright, Linda Anderveg, Kalia Zawicki, Karen Dramera, Jamal Taylor, Howard Hogan, Eve England, LM, David Balston, Anna Post, and Anne Marie. Thank you for all your support.